I welcome you all to today's webinar. The topic of today's webinar is photo processing essentials with tips and tricks, to be presented by the guest speaker, Tirumala Ganesh from Dubai. Today's presentation is the 49th in the series. I'm very thankful to all those who have been supporting me to manage to run so many webinars one after the other every month without breaking the chain. So now I hand over the platform to our guest speaker, Tirumala Ganesh. It's all yours now. Let me stop sharing my screen and you can take over.
Okay, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'll thank Fototechnik, Mr. Tita Gupta, and my mentor, Mohammed Arfan Asif, the mentor and the one who is in Dubai, from whom I learned photography. So, for giving me this opportunity to present in your midst. Now, I'll straight away start the presentation because we'll be having many questions. So what I'm trying to do here is, in this session, I'm going to cover a bit of adjustment layers, and I'm going to talk about curves adjustments, gradients, presets and filters, and then of course, some tips as I'm going through each one of these topics, and anything that you want me to show. And at last, we'll have Q&A. So, so what I'm trying to do in this particular session is now what I'm trying to do is I'm not going to do the basics or introduction of curves, but we will be using curves for many things, isn't it? So, but in today's session, what I'm going to do is we can use a particular tool for many things. Now, that's the specialty of Photoshop. Now, basically what you find here is a picture, and then I see that the picture is very flat. To make it more presentable, what we do is we try to enhance certain things on Photoshop so that it looks appealing. One such thing that we do is the curves adjustments. In curves adjustment, what we do is we'll try to increase the contrast of the image so that it looks much better. Now, to do that, what we do is we'll click on the adjustment layers and then click on curves. And there is a window that pops up like this, which shows the curves layer. Usually, Photoshop selects the mask, but we don't want to select the mask. You will click on the curves adjustment so that the curves are selected. We try to maintain S-shaped curve here by increasing the whites and decreasing a bit of a shadow so that the contrast increases. This is exactly what we do using curves adjustment so that the contrast of the image looks much better. Now you can see this is the before and this is how the image looks after doing a curves adjustment. But is that all curves adjustment can do? No. Curves can be used for many things. It also has an automatic mode. What we do is I'll reset it. Automatic mode is if you click on this 3 more options here, you will get auto options. And in auto options, you can enhance monochrome or you can find the dark and light or enhance per channel. Now, all these things can be done using curves adjustment. But usually what we do is we will go manually by adjusting this curve. This is one way of doing it. Or the other way of doing it is we try to move the white slider by holding the option key. If you move the white slider, you can see how it affects the image. And at the same time, if you click on the Alt option and then move the blacks, you will see how much you want. Maybe you want the image this dark, and you will see a considerable change in the particular image. Okay, in Photoshop, there is no correct way or wrong way of doing certain things. The same effect can be achieved even using levels adjustment. Now, again, I'm selecting here levels here. Now, again, if you see by default, Photoshop selects mask, but we don't want to be selected. We want the layer to be selected. And then use the mid slider and move the slider so that the contrast automatically changes. It happens because the mid-tones are being affected here. So I'd like to move a little bit like this and increase the brightness of the image. And automatically, the contrast of the image changes. Now, this was the before and this was the after. Whenever you try to increase the contrast of the image, automatically you will see that the colors also enhance. Okay, is this the only way of doing it? No, there are many ways of doing it. But fair enough. Having discussed the basics of curves, now let us see what are the other potential things that you can do with curves. Now, in this particular image, if you see a picture of a small butterfly, because of the greenery around the butterfly, there is a green cast which has come on the butterfly. Um, we don't want to present an image like this because the image has a green cast. It could have been for many reasons. One is maybe when I was clicking the picture, when I was making the picture, the white balance was selected wrong. Or maybe due to the ambient light which is around, due to the plants and trees around, there is a green cast. So it becomes our responsibility to remove the green cast and present the image in a correct way. So how do we do it? We click on the curves adjustment, take color balance, and then select the color balance, not the mask, the color balance, and then try to reduce the green and the yellows a little bit like this so that the green cast is removed. This is one way of doing it. In some images, this might not work, or I might not be able to judge it properly. So what I do is I let Photoshop do it. So how I do is I'll click on adjustments, click on curves adjustment, select curves, and here you can find three droppers. This is for black, the second one is for the midtones, and the last one is for the whites. So what I do is I select the white dropper and say Photoshop, let it know what is white. Now in the entire image, I see this part of the image to be white. So I'll say Photoshop that this part of my image is white, and automatically if you see, the cast changes. So now the white appears white, whereas I still find a little bit of green cast here. So what I do is I click on the blacks and I'll help Photoshop find out which is black. So now I have told Photoshop this is black. Same thing can be done for midtones. I'll zoom the image a little bit and then I'll find out a gray spot on the image. And I'll say this is gray, and then you will find a lot of difference. Now on the graph, you can see there is a change in the blue channel, the red channel, and green channel. It has changed it accordingly so that the cast is removed. Now, this is how the image looked before. The entire butterfly was looking greenish because of the green cast. Usually, this particular thing can be done by nature photographers who do macro or bird photography. They want to show the exact color of the species. So, curves adjustments can help. In this case, if you find this is how it was looking before the adjustment was done, and this is how it looks after the adjustment was done. So the real colors show up. So curves adjustments can also be used to get the correct color balance in a particular image. Okay. I like curves because it can do almost most of the thing. Now, this was one of the image which I took from my friend's house. Unfortunately, the window couldn't be open, so I cannot put my camera out of the window and take the picture. The sunrise was beautiful, but then when I took the picture from inside the house, which is through the window was a tinted window. So the cast of the window also appears on the image. So I have to remove this. How do I do it? Traditionally, what we do is we try to use the color adjustment layer. We'll take the color balance and I'll select it here and I'll try to reduce the green. I'll increase the yellow. And I try to do something, but then I still cannot exactly get to the point where I have completely removed the cast. Maybe if I do it for a few more iterations, trial and error, I can get it. But then the easier way is to use curves adjustments. As I told you, you can click on the curves adjustments. Now click on curves, select curve adjustment. You can do it automatic. So as I told you in the previous example, click on more options. You will get auto options. Select on auto options, and then you can just click on find dark and light colors. You can Photoshop to snap on neutral midtones. So it snapped automatically on neutral midtones. Now we just click two buttons and then automatically you see the picture looks much better. Now that is with the cast. Before I used curves, and this is without the cast. So some places where you cannot have access to a rooftop and you cannot do proper skyline photography, and if you click an image through the window, curves can again be used to remove the tint. The other thing that we can do is, now it's still not as good as the picture can be enhanced. So how do I do it? I can add some colors. There should be warm colors on the sky. In this region, I want some warm colors because this is not how I saw the scene. So click on adjustments, select color lookup, and then maybe I'll select. There are so many options that you can select from, but for me, I want it to be more crisp and warm. So I'll say crisp winter, or maybe I can say crisp warm. Yeah, crisp warm looks good for me. Now, using the color lookup, change the color of the sky to be warm. But at the same time, it also made the bottom half of the image very dark. So I don't want this effect to affect the shadows in the image. Now, this part of the image, I have shadows. So I don't want this part of the image to be affected by the color lookup. So what I can do is, instead of using the entire thing, one thing is I can use a gradient mask or something like this. I can remove the effect. Or the other way of doing it is to double click the end of the panel. You will get an option called blend if. This is blend if layer style. Now what I don't want is the effect of the color lookup should not be in the bottom layers. So what I do is, you will see a slider in the bottom here. It says underlying layers. So move the slider and tell Photoshop I don't want this effect on the shadows. So as I move it like this, at a particular point, wherever I'm happy, I'll stop it. So now all you will see is the warm colors are there on the sky, but not on the shadow region. We can also use a blend options. There is a blend option in here. If you click here and then click on soft light or overlay, there are many blend options. See what works for you, and then you can select it. Sometimes what happens is the blend, when you say blend, if the effect is too much and you don't want that much an effect on the image, so what you do is you use opacity slider. You can reduce the opacity or increase the opacity to make the scene look more natural. For me, 70 works. Now you can see this is how the image looked before, and this is after. So in this example, what I showed you is I showed curves to remove the cast, and then we used color lookup to enhance the colors. So again, this is one way of using curves. We'll move on to the next example. I have clicked a picture like this with a white background, but I have a warm light in my house, and so the white background does not appear white. So what do I do? Again, I can use curves, click on curves. Curves is such a powerful tool, which I love to use for most of the thing. So I want to say Photoshop, the background is white. So I click on white, the white dropper, and tell Photoshop this part of the image is white. and automatically you will see the difference. So what was done is in the graph, you will see the red channel, green channel, and the blue channel has been changed considerably based on your indication of saying which part of the image is white. Now I indicated here, I told this part of my image is white. If I select this part of the image to be white, you will see that the image will again change. So when I say press here and press here, you'll see it becomes very bright. I don't want like this. Something like this is good for me. So you can select in multiple places and you can stop where you want it to stop. So for me, this looks better. Okay. There's another way how I use curves adjustments. We can also try to enhance the color of the orange by clicking on color adjustment or saturate. Click on the saturate. Now there is a slider that you find here. You select that one, and then the dropper comes. You can either increase the color or you can decrease the color based on how you like it. This way the contrast also can be increased. Where else do I use curves? I also use curves when I do a monochrome images. For example, this particular image that you find on the screen, there are no much colors in this. So I prefer presenting this image in monochrome. And I also want to make this into a high key image. So first of all, let us desaturate the image by desaturating in a sense. I'll use an black and white adjustment layer. Select on black and white and adjust the sliders such that you will get the contrast that you want. Now, this is how my image looks. I have converted this into monochrome, but now I want to make it into a high key image. So how do I do it? Again, use curves, click on the curves adjustment, select the white dropper, tell Photoshop which part of the image you want it white. So I want this part of the image to be white. So you'll see that the blue cast has been removed. It is evident from the graph. You can also click on the black dropper and say this is black. And if you want to have midtones, okay, select the midtone dropper and say this is my midtone or this one. So this way the image becomes a little, the contrast increases. So this was how the image before and this is after. So in this example, I use curve again to convert this image into high key image and to remove any other cast. So as we have discussed, there are many things that can be done with curves. So, okay. Let's go one thing. We'll finish all the, okay. Now, many a times you must have found advertisements on the internet saying you can buy presets or filters. But what if I say presets can be generated by you, filters can be generated by you just by using Photoshop. So for that, what we do is we'll be using gradient map. So let me click on the adjustment layer and then I'll click gradient map. You'll have a gradient map, something like this. You can change it to classic, linear, or smooth. But then in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a filter with colors. So I'll select this layer and I'll say overlay, or I can choose soft light. So I'll repeat this step again. I click on adjustment layers, gradient map, and then sometimes maybe any other option might be selected. Maybe the blue is selected or maybe the purple is selected. In that case, what you do, just click on basic and then there is black and white. You can select it like this and then it will appear like this. So again, by default, Photoshop will select layers, but don't let it be like that. You have to select the gradient map, change the blend option to soft light, double click on gradient map, and then click once here, and you will find the gradient editor window opening. Now here the type is solid. So from solid, what you do is change it into noise, like you're introducing a particular noise. The roughness is too much here, and because there is so much noise, so what we'll do is we'll try to reduce the noise by moving this slider. I'll go somewhere around 15 or 14. It works for me. And you find an option which says randomize. So every time you click randomize, Photoshop generates a new gradient. This happens randomly. You click, you keep clicking on randomize till you feel that particular gradient suits your image. For me, this works. So at this stage, I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to retain this gradient. Sometimes the effect is too much. So what do? Opacity is our friend. Reduce the opacity, and you will find this is the before and this is the after. In case if you don't like this particular effect, double click on the gradient map again, single click here, and then again try to randomize. You'll be getting different options. Whichever you are happy with, you say okay, and then you can finish your image like this. Let us do the same thing with a different example. I call this random filters. So this is an image which was taken on a very bright day. I don't like this image like that. I want this image to be a little bit different, with a little bit of filter, with warm colors and cold colors. So again, click on adjustment layer, click on gradient map, select the gradient map. I'll select black and white. Okay. And then I'm going to change the blend option to soft light. Now double click once here, and then try to select noise, reduce the noise, and then now you have randomize. So click on randomize, you'll get different option. Now I like this one. So I'll say okay, but the effect is too much. The purples are too much. So what I do is I'll just reduce the opacity and fill to get a different effect. Maybe you don't like it after some time. Double click again, click here, and then again click on randomize. You'll keep getting different options. Now these are all different types of random gradient maps that the Photoshop itself generates. So we don't have to buy separate maps or separate presets to do this. So this is one of the ways how I use gradient maps. Okay, sometimes this kind of a picture where you will find a picture with two colors. This is called as a dual gradient. This can also be done using Photoshop. For example, I like this one, and I want to have this similar gradient on my image. So how do I do it? I'll take this picture and just move this a little bit so that the other picture is seen. Click on layer adjustment. Click on gradient map. You'll get the same thing. Basic, black and white, okay. And now click once here, the same window will open, which is the gradient editor. Now you find the highlight and you find the shadow. So click here once, and then the color selector tool will open. Select the color. Now what you do is you start sampling from the actual image and then move it to the source image like this. So the image, the color has copied here. So just click on this option here to apply the effect. And you say okay. Now select the shadow, sample the color, start sampling from your image, and then move the pointer and move it to the red. Again, now I have to apply. So click on this option, it's going to apply. And you will find the image totally converted into two colors. And you also have an option here where you can keep moving the midtones so that you can see how much of the shadow has to be red and how much of the highlights have to be in cyan. And you can say, okay. And then this is the before, and this is the after. So this type of an option can be used by creative photographers. Sometimes they try to create a new image with a different effect. So what you can do is you like a certain image from a movie or maybe from a magazine or something, and you want to have the same gradient in your image. So what you do is you just take a screenshot of the image, and then you can copy the highlight and gradients to your image. Let me do this thing again for a different image. Obviously, I have vertical images so that I can move the screen like this and I can show you. I'll repeat the same step. Click on adjustment layer, click on gradient map, select gradient map, again, select black and white. So you'll have it like this. Now, I always try to change it to black and white so that I know where is the shadow and where is the highlight. So now click on the gradient, click on the highlight, select the layer, start sampling from your image and move to the source image. You will have it like this. Apply the effect and press OK. Do the same thing. Click on the shadow, sample the color, start sampling from your image to the source image whose gradient you want to copy. Apply the effect and you say OK. Now in this image it doesn't work, but still this is just an example to show you how you copy the colors. Okay. Before going into this, I want to show you this particular image. Now, what I do is I have created images like this. This was one of the image which I clicked from which I made in Sheikh Zayed Mosque. This was in the evening time. And this image was made in another season, another month, but during the night time. And this was an image which I made in the same location, but in a different month, different season. It was during the daytime. Now I plan to print my images and I wanted to hang it on the wall, but then I don't like each image to be with different colors. That here it is more warm and this one is cool. But what I want to do is when I want to print, I want to see that all the three images have the same tonality. Now, how do I do it? Again, sometimes you also made a panel. A panel may have 15 images, or sometimes some panels may have 10 images. Now, when you make a presentation, or when you want to present it as a panel, you will feel that all the images should have the same tonality. So you need to match the tone of one image with the other. For example, in this particular example, what I'm going to do is I want all the images to look warm. So how do I do? Okay, let us we'll use Photoshop for this again. Let me open this. I mean, this is the image which is very cold. So I'll open this in Photoshop. Okay. Now the gradient that I want has to be like this. I need this warm tone. So what I do is I can copy and I'll go back to Photoshop and I can paste it. Once I paste it, you will have the image. Now, for our better understanding, what I'm going to do is I'll try to resize this image. I'll keep it small so that it is just a reference for us. So I'll just keep it in a corner like this. Now, take the select tool, the selection tool, lasso tool, and select a bright area from the image like this. Random selection will do. Click on filters. I don't know why. Okay, I didn't select the layer. The layer is selected now. Click on filter and then select blur and then average. Sorry. Do the same thing for midtones. This area of the image has midtone, so I'm selecting it. I'm clicking on filter and then blur, average. So I have midtones here. And of course, this is the shadow part, so I'll just leave it like this. Now what I do is I want to transfer the midtones. Sometimes I have to transfer only the highlights and the entire image will change. Sometimes I need to take a sample from the midtones also. So what I do is I'll start with highlight. So click on the underlying layer, which is the background layer, which is the image that I want to adjust. Select adjustment layers. Click on curves. As I told you, curves are super powerful. So click on curves. So I get the curve like this. Double click on highlight. Now I want Photoshop to say, this is my highlight. So the target color is this one. So I will select this sample here. You will see that it already selected. Press OK. Now Photoshop wants to set this to be as default, but don't do it. Just say no, because I want only for this time. So say no. Now select the highlight in the target image. So when I click like this, automatically you see that the two images started matching. If in case it doesn't match, in this case, it is perfect. It matched. In some examples, it doesn't match. So in that case, what you do is sample for the shadows. Double click on shadow. And in the source image, say this is the shadow. Press OK. Photoshop will ask if you want to default it, say no. And then select the shadow in the other image. So now what you can see is the tones almost matched. So this way I can make all the images in my panel to be of the same tone. There were too many steps in this example, so I'll just try to repeat the whole process again with a different image. Okay, let me take this image. I'll open with Photoshop. I'll copy the image whose tonality I want to transfer to the new image. I'll just paste it by pressing Ctrl V. Now resize the image because we just want this to be as a reference. I'll just put it here. Now take lasso tool, select the highlight area, click on filters, select the layer, click on filters, blur, average. So you get an average of this particular bright area. Click on background layer, select curves adjustment, select the curves adjustment here, and double click on highlight, say this is the target, say okay. Now Photoshop asks if you want to default it, say no. Click on the area where you want to change the color. Repeating again, double click here, select the target, say okay. It asks for a default, say no. Click on the highlight, the entire colors, tonality of the image will change. This usually helps when you want to create a panel overview image and you want to match the tonality in all the images. So you can now remove the unwanted layer. This is the layer, so I remove the unwanted layer. If the effect is too much, again, just reduce the opacity a little bit and it will do the work. So you must have seen that I'm using curves almost for everything. Okay, next thing, the very interesting thing is during when you photograph the nocturnal creatures, or sometimes when you want to take pictures of people, you will see that the flash is very bright, and then in certain areas you will have blown out whites like this. You will see this blown out white here. This can be removed. So how do you do it? Using Photoshop, what I can do is I'll take the lasso tool. You will select the area randomly. The selection need not be perfect. Right click, say fill, and you say content aware fill. This is one of those adaptive techniques. Now what happens is the entire area has been removed. But if you're going to submit this image for nature division, this will not be acceptable. So I've just taken this example because I had this one. But then by doing this, what happened was when I tried to select this area and then when I tried to fill, the complete effect has gone. So it doesn't make it look very natural. So I don't prefer doing this way. So what I do is I use the spot healing brush and I'll just brush on top of it. Now what happens is sometimes it just does a good job, sometimes it doesn't. So what is the best practice? The best practice, what you can do is use the spot heal, change it like this, but then it has to look natural. So now what you do, go on edit, fade spot heal brush and reduce the opacity. When you reduce the opacity, it looks a bit natural. Same thing can be done here. I'm repeating the step. I'm just roughly doing it. And now the entire glare has been removed, but then I want to maintain a bit of a glare. So what I do is I'll just reduce the opacity. It comes out like this. So it looks natural. Same effect. Reduce the effect. And it looks natural. So what we have done is the image was in it was showing a lot of blown out spots. Now we reduced it. Fade option also works for certain things. For example, if if you're trying to draw something using a brush tool, you can reduce the effect of the brush tool by just reducing it like this. You can fade it out. Not in this image, but you might use it in some other image when you make creative images. This is another example where I have a broken stone here, a brick. I can fix it. So use the same spot heal, paint it on top of it, and then you'll see that it almost fixed the broken brick. These things add to the neatness of the image. Now say that I'm going to create this particular, I'm going to create something out of it. I'm going to draw a graffiti on the wall. How do I do it? I'll be using the brush and I can draw graffiti. I can write something. So let me draw something like this, say a circle. But I don't want this to be very bold. So what I do, click on edit, fade brush, and then I can just reduce the effect of it. Okay. So this is about using the fading option. Now, I've been working with this image and then I feel that I don't want this portion of the image uh, to show the brick. So maybe I change my mind. I want this to be also like the wall. I don't want to show this floor. Rather, I want to replace it with a wall. Can I do it? Yes. Just select this area, right click. Oh, sorry. It went into the shortcut. Okay. Click on fill and then say content aware fill. Photoshop does its work, but then you see that it is not proper. The lines of the brick are not being aligned with what Photoshop has done. It's a very poor way of extending the wall, isn't it? So how do you do it? The other way of doing it is by using clone stamp, but unfortunately, clone stamp also does not do a great job. So let me show it. If I try to use clone stamp, what you see is, again, what you created still doesn't look like the proper brick, isn't it? The alignment is wrong. So you will see that the bricks here are going in a beautiful diagonal fashion. Here it became almost horizontal. So it's not matching. So what has to be done? We have to use a different filter. Photoshop has a different filter for it. So you can click on filter and then click on vanishing point. So when you open the vanishing point filter, it appears like this. Reduce the size of the image, zoom out a little bit. Then try to draw sample an area. Like for example, I'm going to sample an area like this. I sampled it. By sampling it, I'm going exactly according to the lines, in parallel to the lines. Okay, that's done. Now extend this area. I want to grow the wall in the entire frame like this. And then you select clone stamp. Now you can zoom the image. And then sample a particular area somewhere like this. Like you use your stamp tool and start painting it. This again, I'm using clone stamp option, but after using vanishing point. Now you'll see that the bricks that you have done exactly aligned with the rest of the image. So what you have done is you have just extended the wall. Now these things can be used when you do creative images. And once you're happy with the work, you can say, okay. So this is a before and this is after. So this is the correct way of using vanishing point. These are certain tools usually used by creative photographers. I mean, all photographers are creative, but then what I mean is when you set the image. So this is vanishing point. So there is also another thing when you do architectural photography.
Thirumalai, there's a request from one of the friends to repeat this thing which you have shown just now.
Okay, okay, I'll do this again. So we'll repeat vanishing point again.
ঠিক আছে
Okay, I'll open the image with Photoshop. I have this image. I'm just going to make a copy so that I can show you what is before and what is after. First, click on filter, select vanishing point, and you will have this vanishing point. Now, automatically, what I do is I'll try to zoom out the image a little bit so that I can see the lines properly. So I'll draw the target. I'm selecting the area. Okay, sometimes Photoshop also does this thing. What you can see is now this line became red, isn't it? It means that it is not the line that I have marked is not in parallel with the lines which are already there in the image. So try to slowly move it till it changes blue. When it is blue, it means the selection is correct. It is adaptive, so it can understand what we do. And then increase the layer. We have just made a layer like a platform. Now select clone tool. Select the target area and then start brushing it. Just brush it. That's it. And when you're happy with it, press OK. So this is before and this is after. You can also fill up this area on the top area. Also, you can fill up this area also with the same wall by using the same option. Anyways, hope this one was clear. So let me go to the last one, which I wanted to show for this evening. Okay, this happens when we do architectural photography, and especially when you're standing in a confined area where you cannot move yourself or reposition yourself, or sometimes when you're standing in front of a very tall building. What appears to our human eye as vertical does not appear vertical in the camera, isn't it? So you have this different kind of distortion. The easiest way to fix it is open the image in Camera Raw. If you have a raw image, then click here and then say go geometry and then say auto. Most of the time auto works. If auto doesn't work, then click on the last option, vertical and horizontal. This is how you'll get an image, but then you will have to crop the image. So when you crop the image, the actual image which is usable becomes very, very less. But what you clicked was totally different. So, so I don't prefer doing this option. Rather, what I do is I take this particular, I'll import this image. I'll open this image in Photoshop. Then I take crop from here. Now, instead of selecting the crop tool, I right click here and select perspective crop tool. After selecting perspective crop tool, you just draw an area like this. Now, catch the corner, move it to one edge, and this one to one edge. Now, what I'm doing is I'm moving these lines in parallel to the structure, something like this. And again, Photoshop gives you guidelines. So follow the guideline and then you'll have something like this. And then say select, automatically Photoshop crops it. At the same time, it also fixes the perspective. So this is called as perspective crop. I'll repeat the same thing with a different example in case if I don't have a raw image, what do I do? Again, I have a JPEG image here. I'll right click this image and then open as Photoshop. I have it like this. Again, select crop, but then here instead of selecting normal crop, you will say perspective crop, and then try to draw a box. Now try to align it with the corners. As it is cropped, considerable amount of the image will be cropped out, but then it fixes the perspective. This usually happens when we use wide angle lenses or when you're very close to tall buildings. So I have set it, and now I say accept. You can find that the edge of this particular image is now parallel to the edge of the frame. Similarly, here you will find this particular section is parallel. So there is no vertical, but still this particular image is a little bit tilted. Tilt can be adjusted later. So this is one of those ways to change perspective. Apart from this, Photoshop also has adaptive filters. Adaptive filter, I'll just take a, okay, I'll take this image because most of us do portraits. And in Photoshop, I have opened the image. This is not camera raw. I have the Photoshop image. What I'll do is I'll select filter here. And in this filter, there is another camera raw. Click on this one, camera raw. It is like an adaptive filter. And you find the presets here. And here it says adaptive portrait. So you can select this. And you can select any of these options. As you select the option, it will create the effect on the particular image. You can say enhance the portrait. It's updating. Okay. So you can increase the effect or you can reduce the effect. You can also say enhance eyes, and then you can reduce the effect or you can increase the effect. If you zoom in, you will know what's happening here. It is reducing the effect or you can increase the effect. It also has options like darken beard, texture the hair, and all those things. I mean, this particular image, there is no beard. So let me try to increase the texture of the hair. It says texture here. You can increase the texture or you can reduce the texture. So this is a kind of adaptive. Yes, Photoshop uses AI to a certain extent. So that's for portrait. Same thing. There are more adaptive filters. You also have adaptive filters for urban structures. You have it for landscape. So let me try to do the same thing with an urban structure. Let me say yes. I'll close this image. I'm going to show you how to use a camera raw filter and how to use those adaptive tools. I think I had them here. Okay, there is a open this in Photoshop. Now click on filters. So having so many filters that I have told you how to create your own filter using gradient map, and there is gradient filters in Photoshop also, the presets as they call. We don't have to really buy anything from the internet anymore. So you can click on urban architecture, and then again you will find a lot of filters. You can use this, or you can use this. You can use this. They're all adaptive. So you can also increase the effect or you can reduce the effect. Okay, this also does monochrome. Again, you can increase or decrease the effect. But then these things does not do a proper job. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So these are presets and then you can use them like this. Okay, I randomly was trying and I like this effect, and so I can say okay. So that was a monochrome created by an adaptive filter. I think I have demonstrated a lot of things, so I will stop it here and I'll let the participants ask some questions, or if you want me to do something in specific, you can ask me to do so that I can show you how it's being done in Photoshop.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Mr. Tirupati,
Yes.
I have two questions. What's the
Okay.
difference? How levels are different from curves? Is there any specific difference?
No. Levels and curves are almost the same. Function, it does a similar thing, but then curves gives you more control than levels. That's the basic difference. We use both levels and curves to enhance the picture.
In levels, there is one option for brighter tone, dark tone, and mid tone. You can. Okay.
Similarly, in curves, you will have for each channel R, G, and B, the red, green, and blue.
Okay. My second question is, the blend option is supposed to be very powerful.
The blend option.
But it is very. I randomly use overlay, multiply without understanding. Can you suggest any reading material in how I could understand that? It's very confusing sometimes. While explaining to one of the participants, you suddenly choose overlay. How did you choose that? I am doing it very randomly.
Okay, so let me share my screen again and I'll take an example and I'll show you how to understand that particular thing. Now, Photoshop itself has a better way to understand it. Sorry, I haven't opened the image. Open image. Okay.
Share the screen first.
Okay, there it is. I can share. There are multiple windows, so I didn't know which window to share. Okay. I got it here. Now, say I'm going to do some kind of an adjustment. Now, let me say levels. In the latest version, I don't know why the mask keeps selecting. Usually the layer gets selected, but now it's something like this. Okay. Say that I have done some adjustment here, and then I see that the effect is too much. So what I do, I use a blend option. Now there is two options, blend and blend if.
Blending.
Blend is from here.
Right.
Now if you see that here it says, I mean, there are segments here. If you say, it says dark, multiply, color burn, linear burn, darken. Now all these things, some way or the other, tries to make the image darker.
Okay.
So if you want the effect to deepen the image, darken the image, you will be using one of these options.
Okay.
In the next segment, you'll see lighten, screen. All these things will try to increase the brightness of the image. And overlay means
mixture of both.
What it does is anything which is less than 50% gray becomes brighter, and anything which is more than 50% gray becomes darker.
Okay.
So it affects the either sides of the midtones. So the deeper tones will become more deeper. The lighter ones will become more lighter.
Like just like contrast.
Just like contrast. Now all of this does the same thing. Now again, you see there's a small line, and below the line again there is a difference. We never use this one. And the last segment is for the saturation. The colors, you affect only the hue, you affect color or the luminosity. Okay, when I say this one, I'll do another effect now. For example, I'm using color lookup. Now in color lookup, again, you will see there's a lot of presets here. Now I like this one, the Fiji. It gives you a different effect. Now what it made is, it made the image a little bit brighter. And you'll see that all the shadows have become a little bit flat. So at this section, what I have to do is, I'll not be using any of them from the lighter sections. I will either use multiply, or I will use overlay, or soft light. So that's how you will choose it.
Okay.
And if the effect is you're welcome.
Please tell.
Yeah. If the effect is too much, you will just reduce the opacity here.
Okay.
This is about blend. And blend if is this one. You just move the mouse to the end of this, double click, and then the layer style will open. You have underlying layer, current layer. Now, if you don't want the effect to affect the image, for example, on the shadows or in the bright areas, so you will just move the slider. Now you'll, if you focus on the dark area,
I'm not sure I'm going to see you between. I'm not sure I am going to see you between when I ski and when you leave. That's February. So he's not even here.
Hope this helps.
Thank you. Very simple explanation. Thank you. I was able to understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there are two other persons who have raised their hands. Johnson, unmute yourself and ask your question. And then Malavika has also raised her hand. You can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, hi, Thiru.
Hi, Malavika.
Yeah, I just want to say that so far I was much comfortable with using level. But after seeing, I will try to use the curve. Whenever I would use the curve, my image would go horribly wrong. So I don't know why. So I will definitely try the curve now. And thanks a lot for the great learning.
Thank you, Malavika. My pleasure. Curves is powerful, as you have seen.
Yes.
It can do multiple things because you have more control on the image. If you consider each and every pixel of the image makes a complete frame, then I would consider it is like a grain of sand put together, put one next to another, right? So you can define each grain with its characteristics. and that's what curves helps us do. So what I
Yes.
mean to say is you can say which pixel is dark, which pixel is black, which pixel is
Right.
white.
Yes.
And then it
I
affects the
will
entire
definitely try
category.
from now.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Johnson, you have raised your hand for quite some time. Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Yes, ask your question.
Okay, sir. Thank you for the wonderful presentation, sir. Today I learned a lot new things. So my question is, sir, what is your thoughts on AI?
My thoughts on AI. Now I see that AI is being used everywhere. Now I cannot do photography without AI for that matter. Now where it starts from the very start, when I click the shutter, there is AI because there is automatic focus. It is not me who is focusing, especially when there is a fast object. There is also tracking. How does the camera identify this is a person and that's the eye and this is moving and this part of the image is a subject? That's AI. So we can completely not be against AI in general, but then what I say is we just follow the rules of competitions and be more ethical. In a particular competition, if they say AI not to be used, let's not use it. We'll use it to the minimum, like clicking. And then even the curves that you have seen, it has auto function. All these auto function are some kind of an algorithm. It calculates by itself. It uses a certain amount of intelligence. But we are not dependent completely on their intelligence because we have control on the image. As long as you have a control on your image, it means you're not using AI. So AI has become part of not only photography, but part of everything. I type something on the word and then it finds mistakes for me, grammatical mistakes, spelling mistake. When I use WhatsApp, when I chat automatically, it tries to find out what I'm typing, right? So all these adaptive things are there. AI has its own advantages, but we will do more photography than AI. As it was a general question, I had to answer it very generally and very
Right.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Datta, Shavajendra Datta, you can unmute and ask a question, please.
Thanks, Thirumalai, for a wonderful presentation.
My pleasure, Doctor.
Really engaging. I just wanted that if you can do a little bit of luminosity masking, which times helps.
Luminosity masking. Okay.
Thank you.
I must have luminosity masking cannot be done in every image. For example, I have an image of, okay, I got this one. I'm sharing my screen now. Share Photoshop. There. Okay. Now, there's an image like this. Now, the luminosity of this particular image is good. I don't want to change anything. The brightness has to remain the same. But I want to apply an effect. For example, I'm trying to apply an effect. I want to use color lookup so that it's easy for us to understand. I'm going to use a very okay, this particular filter is almost destroys the image because it makes it too yellowish. But that's the image. But then what happens to this image is it became too much yellowish, more golden light. This golden light with shadows right under the feet is not possible because it's midday. So it makes the image look so surreal. So here what I do is I'm going to use luminosity. Now, the moment I apply luminosity, you see that the brightness of the image is the only thing that is going to be affected. Now, this is the before and this is the after. So luminosity is one kind of filter that affects only the color, only the light, but not the colors. But does that answer your question, Doctor?
I don't know.
Yeah, something happened.
Well,
Yeah, I couldn't unmute my. The only thing is that I just wanted to the luminosity part you showed is very nice.
Okay.
I just wanted if we can do a masking of that. Like at times, there's
Yes.
requirement
Masking.
when you're doing a portrait and all.
Okay, what I'll do is for that, this particular image is not appropriate. So what I'll do is I'll try to quickly download an image from somewhere because it's much easier for me to download the image than searching it on my hard disk. You want it specifically on a portrait or any image can do like a lifestyle?
Anything that suits you.
Okay. Okay, now let me share my screen. Okay, I just inputted this image from somewhere. Okay. So let me say this is an image. The image for me looks very flat. It's a portrait, lifestyle or culture. But then it looks very flat for me. So how do I enhance this? The first thing I'll do is I'll always start with curves adjustment and I'll just make it like this. The moment I increase the contrast, you will see that the face has become very bright, whereas the surrounding has become dark. And then this part of the image also became dark, which is not very good. So let me not affect the entire image. I'll use this curves only to brighten up the subject. So I'll go to select and I'll say select subject. Okay, select subject, there you go. Okay, it almost selected the subject. A little bit of a glitch here, but that's fine. For the sake of demonstration, I'm just using it like this. Now I'll click on the mask. And then I'll paint it with black. So I'm just making it like this so that it is visible. So I painted it with black. So what you will find in the mask is whenever you find the red area is where the mask is closed. The effect is not revealed there. But the other part, the effect is revealed. So in order to see it more better, what I'll do is I can make it more darker. So you will see the effect more better. So you will see it affects only the surrounding and not the subject. I want this subject to stand out. Right. So again, let us do the same thing with luminosity. Now I have applied the curves. And when I click on luminosity, what you will see is it is not the colors that has enhanced. It is just the brightness of the image which is changing. Now, when I go to normal blend mode, you see that this became orangish and here it became more reddish. So this is what we don't want. We only want the brightness, the luminosity of the image to be affected. So I'll just go luminosity. Now you'll see the before and after. It just made the surrounding a bit dark. Very nice. The other thing we can do is in the portrait effect also, here you see this part of the face is very bright. And this part is dark because obviously the light is from this side. So I can modify the mask by selecting the mask. I'll reduce the radius of the brush and then I'll start painting it this side. Sorry, I'll start painting it this side. It becomes more dark. Reduce the opacity of the brush. And then paint it gently till you get. So this is how I just mask it. Now, if you find it, the mask, you must have seen that I have erased certain part of the mask here. So the effect shows up here, and wherever it is red, the effect does not show up. That's luminosity.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, doctor.
Okay. Anybody else with any more questions, please? Well, if not, then we'll go to our concluding slides. Allow me to share my screen and have the concluding slides, right? We appreciate your participation in today's International Phototechnic webinar and supporting us in making it so successful. Well, you can take a screenshot of this page wherein you'll find my contact numbers and my email ID. So anything related to Phototechnic or Phototechnic webinars or PSA, you can contact me on any of these phone numbers or my email ID. Well, on behalf of School of Phototechnique and on my personal behalf, we thank you all for your participation. We extend a very special thanks to our guest speaker, Tirumala Ganesh, for doing a wonderful and very demanding topic of the presentation that he has done today. In fact, the number of people who had attended is much, much higher than the general number of attendance in most of our webinars. So, Tirumala, you can see the kind of demand that is there for the topic that you have handled. So maybe we can think of after maybe 6, 7, 8 months, we can repeat another one with different tools of Photoshop and something which you have not shown us today. Maybe you can show us again, and I'm sure you'll get a very good attendance like what we have got today. So thank you once again. Thank you all
Let's do
who
this,
have participated. Yes.
Sorry, I was telling, let us
Yeah.
do another session if there are more people interested. And next time, what we will do it a little different way. What we'll do is we'll first send out a questionnaire, and then we'll get all the questions, and then accordingly I'll do the presentation, so that will be directly helpful. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
As of now, till the month of May is already finalized. So, and as you have said that we send out a questionnaire and then take their feedback. So, in that case, it take a little time.
Right.
So, let us fix it up sometime after the middle of this year, maybe June, July, August,
Yes. Yeah.
as it is convenient.
Okay.
So, thank you all for your participation, your support, your cooperation.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
of course, thank you very much, Tirumala Ganesh, for making the event so successful.